Hello and welcome back to Unearthing the Past. In this lecture, we'll take a quick tour through the many branches of archaeology, the different paths scholars follow to investigate the human past. Like specialists in medicine or law, archaeologists often focus on particular kinds of evidence or time periods, helping us build a richer, more detailed picture of history. Think of archaeology as a tree, with many branches growing from a common trunk. Each branch represents a different subdiscipline. Some archaeologists dig ancient cities, others scan landscapes with lasers, some study bones or seeds, others analyze buildings or artifacts. Let's start with prehistoric archaeology, the study of human life before written records. Prehistoric archaeologists piece together our earliest history using material remains, like tools, cave art, or burial sites. Sites like Stonehenge or Göbekli Tepe fall into this category. Because there's no written evidence, interpretation relies entirely on what survives or what people left behind. In contrast, historical archaeology works alongside written records. This branch is especially prominent in regions where archaeology and texts can be studied side by side. Archaeologists in this context often compare what they find underground with what is written, sometimes confirming and sometimes challenging historical narratives. Such works is inherently collaborative. Take the Behistan inscription, for example, a monumental multilingual royal inscription commissioned by Darius I around 520 BCE, carved into a cliff in western Iran. Written in Old Persian, Elamite, and Babylonian, it recounts how Darius rose to power after the death of Cambyses II and quelled multiple rebellions across the empire. The text presents Darius's version of events, portraying him as the rightful king while condemning his opponents as impostors. To study such a complex source, many specialists work together. Epigraphers, linguists, archaeologists, historians, and conservation experts all contribute their expertise to interpret and preserve the inscription, unlocking its historical and linguistic significance. Classical archaeology focuses on the Greek and Roman worlds, and not just the grand temples, villas, or statues we often imagine. It also explores the everyday side of life, homes, cooking pots, tools, and the traces left behind by ordinary people. This kind of archaeology helps us understand how these ancient societies really functioned, how people lived, traded, worshipped, and interacted across the Mediterranean. The term classical might sound neutral or purely academic, but in reality it carries a lot of cultural weight. For centuries, Greek and Roman civilization were held up as the foundation of Western culture, the peak of art, politics, and philosophy. And while their influence is undeniable, this view placed them on a pedestal, creating the impression that other ancient cultures in Africa, the Near East, Asia, or Americas were somehow less important, less advanced, or less worthy of study, simply because they weren't considered classical. The term also brings with it an aesthetic bias. Think marble statues, perfect symmetry, and idealized bodies. But this polished image can obscure the messy realities of the ancient world. Things like slavery, inequality, and imperialism, which were just as much as part of those societies. There's a colonial legacy here too. In the 18th and 19th centuries, European powers often cast themselves as heirs to Greece and Rome. The idea of classical civilization was used to justify colonial expansion, as if Europe was bringing culture and order to the rest of the world. For a long time, the study of the classics was also dominated by elite, Western, mostly male scholars. So the label has been entangled with issues of power, privilege, and who gets to define the past. Today, more and more scholars are rethinking how we use the term classical. They are highlighting the deep connections between the Mediterranean and other regions and calling for a more inclusive global perspective on antiquity, one that recognizes diversity and challenges outdated hierarchies. Let's take a closer look at one example, the funerary inscription of Ostiala Gallenia, discovered in Padua in northern Italy. At first glance, this might look like a typical Roman funerary monument, a formal portrait, a Latin inscription, a commemorative purpose. But when we examine the details more closely, we see something much more culturally complex. Ostiala is depicted wearing a long-sleeved, fully skirted dress, cinched with a broad belt and topped with a heavy cloak pinned at the front. On her head she wears a headdress with a disc-shaped ornament, a style not Roman but distinctively Venetic. This is important. While the men on the stele are shown in Roman togas and tunics, signaling their adoption of Roman cultural norms, Ostiala's dress asserts her local identity. She is not dressed like a Roman matron in a stola and palla. Instead, she is presented in traditional Venetic attire, a choice that tells us something vital. Regional identity still mattered under Roman rule. Her image shows us that cultural blending in the Roman Empire wasn't uniform. It was negotiated and often gendered. Public identity, especially in death, could reflect complex layers of tradition, affiliation, and self representation. So, what does this tell us about classical archaeology? It reminds us that the so called classical world was never just Roman or Greek, it was a mosaic of different cultures. And by paying close attention to cases like Ostialas, we can uncover the diverse identities that exist within the Roman Empire, especially those that might be missed in elite literary sources. A developing branch of archaeological research is contemporary archaeology, which examines the very recent past, from abandoned Cold War bases to modern rubbish dumps. It reminds us that archaeology isn't just about ancient ruins or distant civilizations. It's about how material culture shapes and reflects human life in all periods, including our own. A powerful example is Greenham Common in Berkshire, UK, a former Cold War airbase where US cruise missiles were stationed in the 1980s. From 1981 to 2000, it became the site of a long-running women's peace camp, one of the most iconic protest movements in modern British history. Today, contemporary archaeologists study not just the military infrastructure, like missile silos or shelters, but also the traces of protest. Handmade banners, fence decorations, fire pits, and everyday objects left by the women who camped there for nearly 2 decades. Sites like Greenham Common show how even recent history leave behind a material record, one that archaeology can help recover, interpret, and preserve. Environmental archaeology explores how people interacted with their surroundings through farming, settlement, resource use, and even pollution. Specialists analyze pollen, seeds, soils, and animals' remains to reconstruct ancient environments and assess the sustainability of past lifestyles. One striking example comes not from soil but from ice, deep beneath the surface of Greenland's ice cap. Around 2000 years ago, the Romans smelted silver ores in clay furnaces, releasing lead particles into the atmosphere. Winds carried that lead across Europe, where it eventually settled onto Arctic ice. Scientists have now extracted and analyzed layers of that ice, creating an astonishingly detailed timeline of pollution from 1100 BCE to 800 CE. During the height of the Roman Empire, lead pollution soared, reflecting intense silver production for the Roman monetary system, the denarium. Peaks in lead align with known economic booms. Dips match events like the Antonine plagues in 165 CE and wars in mining regions like Spain. What makes this study so remarkable is the resolution, nearly 12 measurements per year, revealing how tightly environmental data tracks historical events. It's a powerful demonstration of how archaeology, when combined with science, can uncover the hidden environmental costs of ancient economies. And it raises important questions. How sustainable were these systems, and how far did human impact really reach, even 2000 years ago? Bioarchaeology, also known as osteoarchaeology, is the study of human skeletal remains from archaeological sites. These remains can reveal a wealth of information about life in the past, including diet, disease, physical stress, trauma, and burial practices. From bones alone, we can reconstruct patterns of health, lifestyle, mortality, and even physique. In some cases, specialists can also investigate genetic relationships between individuals and trace patterns of migration through isotopic and DNA analysis. One striking example comes from Vienna in Austria, where the skeletons of around 150 Roman soldiers were uncovered beneath a modern football field. The remains suggest a violent battle took place here in the 1st or 2nd century CE, likely against Germanic warriors, offering dramatic evidence of the conflicts that marked the empire's northern frontiers. Zooarchaeology, also known as archaeozoology, is the study of animal remains from archaeological sites. By examining bones, teeth, and sometimes even fur or dung, zooarchaeologists can uncover what people ate, how they hunted or herded animals, and the broader role animals played in ancient economies, rituals, and daily life. This field helps us understand everything from dietary habits to trade, animal domestication, and even the symbolic meaning of animals in different cultures. A remarkable discovery comes from Stuttgart in Germany, where archaeologists unearthed the skeletons of over 100 horses dating to the Roman period. Such a find raises fascinating questions. Were these animals used in warfare, transport, or perhaps ritual burial? Zooarchaeology provides the tools to begin answering them. Some archaeologists specialize in scientific techniques. This field is known as archaeometry. It includes methods like radiocarbon dating, chemical and isotopic analysis, and material sources, all used to determine the age, origin, and composition of artifacts and sites. A key application of archaeometry is the study of stone tools, which offer a durable and revealing record of past human activity. By analyzing the shape and wear patterns of tools, archaeologists can reconstruct how they were made and used. But the real breakthroughs come from studying their chemical composition, tracing where the raw materials came from. One particularly powerful method is obsidian sources. Obsidian is a volcanic glass prized in prehistory for its sharp edges and durability. It was used to make tools like knives, scrapers, and arrowheads. But what makes obsidian so valuable to archaeologists is its unique chemical fingerprint. Each volcanic source produces obsidian with a distinct trace element signature. Because obsidian flows are chemically homogeneous, even a small flake of worked obsidian can often be traced back to a specific volcano, and sometimes even a single lava flow. This technique has allowed researchers to map ancient trade networks across vast regions, from the Mediterranean to Mesoamerica, from the Southwest Pacific to the Near East, revealing how materials, ideas, and people moved across prehistoric landscapes. Then there is digital archaeology, where 3D models, GIS mapping, and remote sensing open new windows into past landscapes without digging a single trench. A great example of this is the use of LiDAR, a form of laser scanning that can see through dense vegetation. In Guatemala's Maya Biosphere Reserve, researchers from the Pacunam LiDAR initiative scanned over 400 square kilometers of jungle. What they found was astonishing. Pyramids, road systems, terraces, and entire settlements, structures completely hidden beneath the forest canopy. These scans revealed a vast and highly interconnected civilization, much more complex than previously thought. This kind of digital survey work allows archaeologists to create detailed landscape scale models of ancient societies. It also connects urban and rural zones and helps researchers map entire regions without disturbing the ground. And don't forget underwater archaeology, the study of submerged sites like shipwrecks, harbors, and even entire cities now lost beneath the sea. This branch uses diving sonar, submersibles, and cutting edge survey technology to explore places often untouched for centuries. One of the most ambitious projects in the field is the Black Sea Maritime Archaeological Project, led by the University of Southampton. The project focuses on the Bulgarian waters of the Black Sea, where rising sea levels submerge vast stretches of once inhabited land. A key goal is to understand when this flooding happened, how fast it occurred, and how it affected human populations living along the coast. To do this, the team has used a state-of-the-art research vessel, the Thrill Explorer, equipped with high-tech remotely operated vehicles, or ROVs. These ROVs can scan the seafloor in extreme detail, capturing high-resolution imagery, geophysical data that are then used to produce 3D photogrammetric models. Along the way, the team has discovered and inspected more than 60 shipwrecks, mainly incredibly well preserved, thanks to the oxygen-free waters below 150 meters. These include ships from the Greek, Roman, Byzantine, and Ottoman periods, some never documented before. These discoveries aren't just about sunken ships, they reveal patterns of maritime trade, cultural exchange, and maritime technology stretching back to prehistory. So, archaeology isn't just about digging up ruins, it's a diverse, multidisciplinary field. Whether you are examining ancient DNA, decoding an amphora stamp, or digitally scanning an ancient city, you're helping tell the human story. In our next section, we'll look at how archaeologists actually do this, from field surveys to excavation strategies. See you there.